Hi, in this video I'd like to give you a quick overview of the value, the formatting, and the reason I'm having you do an annotated bibliography. Hopefully you can make better sense of it. So if you go into the annotated bibliography and you download it so you see what the instructions are, you'll see that the value is that it gets you going into databases to find diverse sources. You learn how to evaluate and summarize a source as well as determine if it will be of use to you. And then, of course, you will practice composing an MLA works cited page, which later will be the works cited page for your final project. So just kind of getting ahead of it through the annotated bibliography. I require that you use diverse sources, a minimum of 3. So you could have at least one scholarly article, one book or ebook, and at least one media source, which includes a podcast or a TED Talk or a documentary. It might even be a personal interview with someone who knows something about the topic, preferably an expert on the topic. That counts as a source. Okay, so what you do after you find some sources, a minimum of 3, and you determine, okay, this might be a source that has quotations and information that I could use in my paper. The first thing you do is make an MLA style citation just as it would appear in your works cited page. Okay. So after you have the citation for that particular source, you write a paragraph that briefly states, what is this articles or documentary or podcast or TED Talk or ebook or whatever type of source it is, what was its purpose? Or what was this podcast or interview's purpose, its focus, its main point? So for example, if I'm using a YouTube interview that I found with the author that I read, I would just say, this source is a YouTube video of the author of the novel being interviewed and talking about her writing process. That's it. That's all I would have to say. I would also move into the context, background, history, like this source is valuable because it provides the author's background information. She gives history on X, Y, and Z, or this author provides explanations for terms that I didn't know. So this source is valuable because it provides definitions for terms that I could use in my paper. I might also say this source is biased because it's very much in support of whatever, or it's making a case against, whatever. So you basically state what source type it is and what it offers of value, what its main point is, and then you go into this, how it is biased or not, and bias is not necessarily a bad thing. You just have to point it out. And you can say how recent it is. You can say, well, this interview, even though it's from 10 years ago, the definitions or the history or whatever it provides, these are still relevant today. So there's still, even though the article is not super recent because it's a decade old, it's still important for me to include information from this source. And then finally, you'll say how this source is going to be used by you in your paper. I'm going to use the interview with the author that I found on YouTube to quote directly from the author why writing this novel was important to her or something like that. So this is the format. First your MLA citation, and then the summary evaluation, which is right here. The summary evaluation are these questions. And then you repeat the steps. So having that is important because it gets you closer to thinking about how you're going to use a source. It gets you to focus on what you might say in body paragraphs about the source once you use quotations, or how you will introduce a source. So let's look at this example that I gave you. First, I want to point out the citation, MLA style, which means it's in alphabetical order by last name. E, the next source is this one, starts with the letter I, income inequality. The next source starts with K, and so on. So just like a works cited page, MLA format requires that it be an an alphabetical format. So does the annotated bibliography. They are not the sources are not numbered. They're not bulleted. It doesn't require for you to say what kind of source it is. You just go ahead and do the citation and then get into your paragraph. This source discusses the economic and social proposals to enhance the welfare of middle-class people and provides information regarding the policies and future of global wealth inequality. All right, so when you're writing your paper, what a great thing that you already have here from the annotated bibliography. When you're writing your paper, you just cut and paste or copy and paste what you've already written here into your paper. Not all of it, of course, but some of it, like when you introduce the source. Here's the value to you. Here's another sentence that I might use in my paper. After I use a quotation from the source, I might use this to explain the quotation. This emphasizes that the future of the middle class as a whole is in decline due to global income inequality, and the policies that are in place to improve the general wealth of developing nations. So this is kind of preparing you for drafting your future body paragraphs. So step by step, right? Building blocks. You'll notice that this source does not have an author. When a source does not have an author, then you just start with the next piece of information in the works cited. In this case, it's the title, and the title is Income Inequality Impairs the American Dream. So you just start here. So you don't write anonymous, you don't write no author, you just start with the next piece of information, which is the title, and that's the letter I. Same thing. You're doing this work here so that later in your essay you can copy and paste some of this. The purpose of the source is to debate blah 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 blah. Okay. Later when you use a quotation, you might comment on it by saying this raises questions about the multiple economics with different perspectives on the topic, and so on. So that is the annotated bibliography. If you have any questions, please remember that you can send me an email. You can do a Google search for or a YouTube search for annotated bibliographies, and you can always jump into our Success Center tab over here to get support from a tutor. All right, I hope this was a little bit helpful.